Welcome to Make Explores. Come explore with me. So, we explored for several months about channeling. And the message of the channeling, just in case you didn't watch any channeling videos, the message of the channeling was basically whatever you believe created everything is in you and is in everybody else and is in everything around you. That's it. And it was also going with kind of the empowerment message of Christ, where he said, everything I can do, you can do and more. And the kingdom of heaven's within you. That sort of thing, which makes sense. And then it goes also along with when Jesus was asked what the most important commandment was, he said to love God with all your heart and your neighbor as yourself. So here's the thing, is if you're aware, if you would love God and God created everything, you would respect everything. You would treat everything like it's important, like it's loving. Like people took the passage of like about people having dominion over animals, like you can eat them, you can do whatever, you can be cruel, you can be whatever. That's not how that's supposed to work. You're supposed to be more intelligent. You're supposed to be more caring. You're supposed to be more empathetic when you are in charge of something, because God created that. If again, if you want to use the term God, because there's multiple names that one might call, and that's why I tend to use source, creator, mona, that sort of thing, because it's all encompassing, and it's anybody can listen to this and not have an issue. Call it what you want, because if something created everything, they're not going to be super picky about what you call it. Plain and simple. That's just, like, why would they be so petty? Why would something that created everything, that's infallible, that's all knowing, that's all, be mad at something? Those people that walk around with God hates whatever signs. Really? Why would God hate his own creation? And if it was really necessary for us to be exactly the same, we would have been created exactly the same, because otherwise that means fallible. Because free will without all the information is not free will. It's like make a choice, like pick a pill. Like if I lay down a vial, a pill, like 12 pills, and it's like, you have freedom of choice which pill you're going to take. Which ones are helpful for whatever you got going on and which ones are poison. Like that wouldn't really be free will, would it? That wouldn't be a free choice when you don't have all the information. You don't know stuff. You just have to go on the words of somebody who's, because often, let's face it, the people who are generally talking the loudest aren't usually saying loving things. So the basic message, the reason why that message is important is that because you wouldn't do bad things to the planet. You wouldn't do bad things to people. You would follow all 10, and there's a lot more than 10 commandments, by the way. But you wouldn't break all 10 commandments, any of them, because if you honored that, if you really thought, if your dad made something for you, if you like your dad, if your dad or mom, if they made something for you, you would treasure that, right? Well, that's the same thing here. You wouldn't waste. You wouldn't take more than you need, because you wouldn't want to cheat anybody else. You wouldn't want to harm. You'd find some way to do the least harm, to be what might be called woke. You might care about that stuff. You might do the things like how Jesus was saying, what you do unto the least of them, you do unto me. So he really kind of had this whole thing about take care of people, take care of things. I mean, really, honestly, other than that story about the wedding where he made a lot of wine where people were already drunk, if you take that literally, that makes no sense, But the thing is he taught in a way that wasn't literal. But again, if the kingdom of heaven is within you, when you go outside to judge, to condemn, to point fingers, and again, if you point your finger at somebody, you got these three little guys waving back at you. So if you're spending all your time going, gays are bad, this person's bad, this person, they have a different religion, they think differently than me, they're bad, they vote differently than me, they like PC versus Mac or whatever the case is. I mean, because look at, when I was a youngster, they had a whole debate, tastes great, less filling. I mean, and it was just about the same beer. It was about a light beer, like people will argue about anything. People pick their favorite teams, and people get really tribal about things, and it's sad. And so the messages were basically about, hey, I mean, every once in a while they would chime in about something, and I felt kind of uncomfortable when it came to, like, if there was a political thing or that sort of thing. I kind of felt a little uncomfortable. However, it's what came through, and I didn't mess with the message. But for the most part, it was, because usually when it was something political or something that was kind of at a group or something, it had to do with knock it off or pay attention to this, because it was really harming people, and it was going counter to what the whole point of, if your source, monad, creator, all that is inside of you and is part of you, and so is everybody else and everything else. Not just everybody, they were also mentioning that everything that's even been made, even an inanimate object, has kind of a spark, is what they were saying. So to treat everything with love and respect. Could you imagine if that message really came through and we could all practice it in our lives? What a different world we'd have. I mean, first of all, there would be no environmental issues, because people wouldn't, they'd find a way. And there's enough. I mean, if you really start paying attention, like if you change your algorithms by looking for things specifically. So like, typing in all sorts of different things and being interested in things. Like, I used to watch this show called Bioneers, and they were highlighting different things people were doing that were helpful to the planet. So you had buildings that they were creating that were not only a zero carbon footprint, they were actually producing energy. They were doing stuff that helped, that would offset carbon from someplace else, or that would bring energy. And there's all different things that you've got a lot of kiddos coming up that have some really creative ideas, or different things. Like, for instance, they have all different forms instead of pleather, which is plastic leather, which, yeah, you're not killing a cow, but you now have completely saddled the future generations with plastic that doesn't hold up and it doesn't look right. But like, they have stuff like cactus and different things that they can make a leather type of material, and different people figure out ways to clean up certain things, or growing certain things that can eat plastic, because that's going to be a big deal moving forward. Because right now, plastic takes much longer than any of us, even if you believe in reincarnation, might be lots of reincarnation cycles before that plastic's going to go anywhere. Even if you recycle plastic, it can only be recycled so much. There's a point where it only works for so long. Like it goes to this, like, oh yes, now this is recycled plastic, but once you're done with that, that's still something. I mean, it helped there, type of thing. But when we really would think about, if we wanted to love the planet because it was part of creation, we wanted to love all the beings that run around on it, we would want to do stuff. We wouldn't endanger habitats, because we tend to think about stuff that, again, we use a lot of plastic. Growing up, I'm only 50 years old. Growing up, not everything was in plastic. I know it's cheaper to ship because plastic is lighter weight, but like, pop came in two things. Soda came in two things. It came in a glass bottle, or it came in a can. That was it. No other things. There wasn't the plastic bottles. I mean, and I get it. There's ways to seal it up, and it makes it a little more convenient. However, there's ways to do stuff. We don't need to do this. And, there's ways to, and not everything's perfect, but these are the types of things that you wouldn't have someone putting, because when it comes to certain things, you wouldn't have people poisoning people's water supply. You wouldn't have people taking people's water. You have companies literally who are like, water's not a human right. You know what I mean? Like, wait a second, are willing to poison all the water because they gotta dump the waste from whatever products they were making, or pollute the air and pay people so they look the other way when things are going on. Those type of things wouldn't be done if you looked at everybody as family. If you looked, yes, I get it. There's always going to be somebody. But if we don't do anything because somebody might take advantage or somebody might do something, we're never going to progress as humans. And the whole reason to be here is to progress in some way, shape, or form. So maybe you came not to progress intellectually. Maybe you came to progress when it comes to your heart and your compassion. Maybe you came to progress and you walk into a room and everybody feels a little better. We don't know why we came here. However, regardless of whatever you think, whatever you believe that we're here for, doing good things, doing the right things, doing the kind things, doing the woke things, can't help but make things better. Because these people you claim to follow, or these beings that you claim to follow, like Christ, asked you to do those things. Over and over again, there are more things, whatever religion you follow, there are those kind of the golden rule, and the whole point of us being here, the whole point of learning, growing, and expanding is how can we make it better for everyone? We should want a kinder, softer world for everybody. I know there are people who think bullying and all these different things make people better or make people stronger. You can make strong people without harm. You can do everything without harm. And maybe that's why we're here. And the other part of the messages that I was getting was the things that you're seeing, things that bother you, things that hurt you, turn inward, look at them. Because honestly, the things that, have you ever noticed that there are certain things that don't bother you? Because you cleared it up. So for instance, people have trouble with gay still. It's a lot less than trans. But when someone's on me about being gay or mentions I'm going to hell or, whatever the case may be, I look at it as a them thing. And I, kind of almost anymore roll my eyes because I know that they're unhappy. And I know that there are people who are pro-gay, pro-trans, pro-whatever, tend to be people I want to hang out with. So technically, if those people are, if I were to buy into that I'm going to go to hell because of this, I wouldn't want to, why would I want to spend eternity with someone who doesn't care about my feelings? I know tough love and all that stuff, but, like for instance, the Bible doesn't say anything about spare the rod, spoil the child. And a lot of people quote it like it's a Bible verse. So it doesn't bother me if you hate gay people. You only get one vote anyway, technically. So don't like my marriage, don't care. And now when I was younger and newer to everything, it did bother me. And so I did a lot of work on myself. Because sometimes when something bothers us about who we are and what we are, we might have some internalized whatever it is, phobia. So like, for instance, a lot of people grow up not knowing they're gay. Some people are blessed in some ways to know immediately and have a really supportive family who supports them. And some of us get messages that it's not okay. And then when we figure out that we are gay, because you're not transitioning to gayness, and same thing with everything else, is you know is the fact that, oh, it finally clicks, it finally makes sense, because I couldn't figure out why I never felt the same way in my relationships with guys that everybody else did, and what felt wrong. Like, I felt like I was broken, and then when I figured out I was gay, I was like, got it. But when I was younger, and so then I thought there was something wrong with me. So when people had those messages, when they said those hurtful things, it hurt me. But when I realized, when I turned inward, it's like, oh, there's still part of me that is ashamed or afraid or this or that. And so I worked with that. And then now people can say whatever. Like, for instance, if you don't have, some sort of feelings about something, they can't hurt you. So, for instance, if someone said, yeah, you're a purple rhinoceros, well, I obviously am not a rhinoceros, nor am I purple. And if I were, I'd be magical, and that would be cool. But like, those things, if you don't have something inside of you, if you don't have, I always just kind of imagine everybody has kind of like these vest of invisible buttons that can get pushed and they hurt. And not everybody has your maps to your buttons. Sometimes people are just insensitive and might make a joke about something, and that's kind of their teasing, is their way of showing them that they love you, and they don't know you're sensitive about something, because everybody's sensitive about different things. And so, and I'm not a proponent for homophobia or anything like that, but just remember, when people put you down or when people say stuff about you, it's usually a them thing and not a you thing. And although if it bothers you, I mean, there are things that are right and wrong in the world, but if it bothers you, go inward, turn inward. That's where the kingdom of heaven is. When you get that sorted inside of yourself, when you stop and go, there's stuff like Byron Katie. She has this process called the work, where you can work through, and you generally turn it around and you find, like, oh, there's somewhere where this, I may not be homophobic, but I might be not liking somebody or something. Like, you got something inside of you that's matching up frequency wise to it. So, like, we all have things inside of us, and, and also, like, the world around us, we can't do anything about 99% of what's going on. If you have a chance, and that was the other message, if you have a chance to do something, you can't do something, do it. If not, then deal with why you're upset about it. Because there's always, again, that's when the work's really pertinent, is because, again, you may think, I would never do that. Well, you do find some way that you do something similar that, again, hits the same frequencies. Because you wouldn't be as bugged about things if it didn't, everything's a mirror. And, and people can take that really harshly and wrong, and that's fine. Again, it's your thing. This is my video. My whole message is love. My whole message is peace. My whole message is we are all one, and you live in a circled enclosure. I mean, it's not technically scientifically correct what I just said, but we live in this sphere. Is that better? We live in this enclosed environment that what you do is going to affect everybody else. Like, for instance, when you're in a car and if someone's smoking a cigarette in the car, you're all smoking cigarettes. You might not be getting quite as much, but unless you can roll down your own windows, you are all smoking cigarettes. So think about it that way. The crappy things you do are going to come back on you. It's not karma per se, in the way that, because karma can be used to be okay for repression. Like, for instance, in India, people often see, because there's a lot on karma in different religions that are prevalent in India. And so there are people going, well, hey, they brought it on themselves. So not in that respect, but the respect of, yeah, you cannot hurt other people without hurting yourself. Versus, no, you were born without legs, so you must have done something bad in a different way. That's completely the misuse of karma. Karma is literally, you hurt somebody, it's going to hurt somewhere. You might not notice it now, but your behavior. So this is kind of like when, again, you have people who are judgmental and they say, oh, my religion says this, so I can hate you, or I can discriminate against you, or I can be awful to you and say horrible things. There's karma. They might not necessarily be a person who's ever going to be repressed or ever, but have you noticed the people who are screaming the loudest about that Christians are being persecuted somehow? They are also the people who, as Christians, will try to take away rights of people who they don't agree with, or have no problem, say, bombing countries that people are not the same religion they are. So, they're not happy. So their karma is they are speaking this, they aren't following that, and it doesn't feel good inside because, they know deep down inside somewhere, they know and they feel it. So, and I have yet to meet someone who's hateful that's a joy to be around. I mean, if you hate the same people, they obviously are, but most people who have some bigotry of any sort, it doesn't have to be about sexuality. Anybody who has some bigotry is generally not a ball of fun to be around. So that's their karma. That's the people that when you only do something because that person's powerful and you kowtow and yes man, yes, you're a yes man because you're afraid of repercussions, there's karma in that. You don't have to wait for the karma, it's happening. And if you get excited, if you get schadenfreude about stuff, well, you got some karma coming back to you. So be kind, love each other because you're supposed to. I mean, should is not usually generally psychologically healthy or helpful. But when it comes to good things, yes, like for instance, you should brush your teeth, you should floss your teeth, you should, make sure you get enough water, enough sleep, eat a healthy, balanced diet. There are some times when should is appropriate. However, like I said, psychologically, should is not always the best. However, when it comes to things that are absolutely good for you, you should, like for instance, if you're diabetic, you should take your insulin if you need insulin, right? You should take your medication if you need medication. You should love, be kind to others and to the planet and to everything, because if you aren't, you're not being kind to yourself, and you should be also therefore be kind to yourself, because if you aren't, you cannot truly be kind to other people. All right, everybody. Peace, love, namaste.